and welcome back to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show, where we meet up-and-coming indie authors and talk to them about their published books. Join us as we sit down with our next guest author. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Author Roundup. We have here today author Lynn Battaglia of The Space of Not Knowing. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me today, Emma.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Yes, me too. So you wrote The Space of Not Knowing, and it was published last year. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It's an illustrated children's book, and it's meant to target the age range between 4 to 8. And in this book, I kind of create a space that I call not knowing, or the unknown. And your tour guide is a naked mole rat. And the naked mole rat will take you on a journey into this space. And there you're going to find surprise and awe and self-discovery and how powerful it is to be in this place.
So can you tell us a little bit about the idea, inspiration behind it? Because it's a really interesting concept.
Sure, absolutely. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about how powerful it is to let yourself go to that place of not knowing, and how our culture kind of unwittingly takes that space away from us because, you know, we have to know all these things. The more facts you know, everything. So, but if you can let yourself go to that place, it can be a place of creativity, and you can all of a sudden, you'll start to take in things, little things that you might not normally take in, because all of a sudden you're wide open, you know. So we were talking about how powerful that place was. And we were saying, oh, it would be fun if someone wrote a play about this. And, you know, we had kind of talked about it, and I think my friend just put it aside, but it was playing on my mind. It was just really playing on my mind. And nothing was coming. And then one morning, it was about 3 weeks later, I woke up, and you know how when you're waking up, you're like in that half dream, half wake space?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, and a lot of times I get inspiration in those moments. And so I was in that, yeah, right. And I was in that space. And while I was waking up, I saw this mother holding her child saying, oh, sweetheart, there's this deep space inside of you that's very powerful. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, it's a children's book. And as soon as I said it's a children's book, then all of a sudden ideas, pictures start coming to me in verse and everything. And that's how the whole idea happened. That's how it became a children's book.
Yeah, I was going to say the illustrations just from the cover are really, really pretty. You envisioned the illustrations?
Some of them I had to work with. What happened was there were literally pictures and verse that just dropped into my head. And then they, you know, they weren't making sense. They were all kind of disjointed. So I would write them down feverishly.
Yeah, immediately. Like, I have to get this out.
Okay, I don't know what this is about. Like, one of the first verses that popped into my head was, the flowers that bloom and your neighbor's cat oddly seem linked to the naked mole rat. And at that time, I went, what's a naked mole rat? I didn't even know what this animal was. I must have heard of it somewhere, maybe because I'm like an NPR junkie. I thought maybe, and I like Science Friday, so I might have heard it there or something. But I don't know, you know, I don't remember it. And so when I Googled it, I was like, oh my God, there's an animal called the naked mole rat. And as I started researching, I was like, this is the perfect animal, you know. So, so that there were verses like that just dropped into my head. Pictures like with that verse, I saw flowers and a cat and a naked mole rat dancing to the song "We Are Family." You know, so I mean, there were things like that. So it was just, there were things that just kind of popped into my head, and so I just wrote them all down. And then eventually, I was like, you know, I need some kind of I need some theme to pull this all together because it feels like a feverish dream or something. So I was trying to, that's when I sat down and I tried to draw an outline. I came up with an outline of what I wanted to communicate. And I wrote it down, and then at that point, then that's when the work started happening. It was like I was trying to piece together the things that dropped into my head and then started to fill in the gaps, So it was, and I ended up doing it in verse. It's all in verse. And it's in rhyming couplets, except for one page is not. And there's a reason for that. But it was, I did it all in verse, and, and that was fun, playing with all that stuff, playing with words like that. And then once I had it all completed, and it went on ad nauseum, and once I had it all completed, I had a friend that I had graduated from acting school with, who is an illustrator, who has had some of her cartoons in the New Yorker. And so I asked her, I said, could you illustrate this? And she was like, I'll be happy to, but you need to go after a publisher now. And so then that's the next step. Then I went after a publisher, and that's how I found Balboa.
Yay, that's amazing. I love that it didn't start out as a children's book. I think that's so cool that you were just talking about an idea and you said, okay, play. And then you had a dream and you're like, okay, children's book. I love the way it was a little different for you versus, some writers are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to write a book. So that's cool the way it kind of just made its way into a children's book and then eventually publishing. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was, I have to tell you, I'm at a later age, and the age I'm at, I never saw myself as a children's book author, never in a million years. So this was like all. But what happened was I listened to my instincts.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Is this your first time writing a book and writing in general, or had you written before, or
Well, I moved to New York. It was about 38 years ago to study acting and pursue a career in that. And I did do some acting, but I also did a lot of other side gigs to, pay the bills. And one of my loves, I have to say, is Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. So I love verse. And, so I think that's part of the thing that fueled this becoming verse. But so that's what happened. I mean, I've done all kinds of odd jobs. I started off as a temp. What eventually happened was I started off as a temp, and I was, playing more between the office work and acting. And then eventually, as I got older and the temp jobs became more a pull, and I ended up working more in an office with a more responsible office job. A lot of times I ended up in accounting departments working there, and, but I always kind of kept my hand in acting, like I'd be working with a company, I might do a play, or I might direct a reading or something like that. So I was always playing around with that stuff.
Did you find it hard to write, or what was your writing process like?
Well, what happened was I never, quite honestly, I never thought of myself as a writer. I have
definitely creative though, because that creative side of the brain, acting, all that. So
right, thank you so much. Yeah, the writing, I have experienced dyslexia, and I didn't learn to read until I was maybe 9 or 10. I mean, I really had problems with reading. I had a lot of problems with words. So writing, I never thought of myself as a writer in a million years. But what happened was when I started to pursue the acting, it made me deal with that, because I had to memorize words, I had to deal with words, and I ended up liking Shakespeare so much that I think it helped the connections in my brain or something, so that, that happened. But just because those connections seemed a lot better than what they were when I was 10 years old, I still never thought, oh, here's a writer. I never thought that, but there was this one Shakespeare company I was working with about 3 years ago, and they had me acting and I was directing plays. And there was this one thing they were putting together for Halloween. And we were going to do scenes and perform them. And everyone had seen a lot of those scenes for Halloween, like from the Scottish play and, from Richard II and stuff. And I was like, I want to do something original. And then what popped into my head was I heard a voice saying, well, you have a relationship with me. And I knew it was like Shakespeare. I went, what? And then I wrote this soliloquy about my relationship with Shakespeare, and I performed.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
That kind of started me on.
Sparked it.
Yeah, it kind of sparked it. And I think that might have been what happened. I think that's why this whole thing started to happen a bit, because I was open to it. To me, it was just play. It was just play.
How long did it take you to write your book? When did you start writing it, and how long did it take you to finish it?
It took me about a little over a year. So that first idea popped in on, it was in December of 2020. Mm-hmm. And it took me a little over a year. I had that first time where that was about a 3-month period where I put it all together, and there was this long manuscript of the children's book, The Space of Not Knowing. And then I went about finding publishers, and I knew I had kind of decided I wanted 2 publishers. I either wanted New Library World or Hay House, because it had a spiritual bent to it. So I wanted one of those. And so the New World Library doesn't do children's books. So then I started to pursue Hay House. They told me to do a workshop, which I did. And that's how I found out about that.
Oh, perfect. You've done the workshop. That's awesome.
I did the workshop, and I found out about it. And while I was in the workshop, I realized that probably self-publishing was a better venue for this, because I didn't have any kind of social media presence or anything. And it was my first book. And this, for me, it was just, I was playing, so I was like, I think this might be a better venue for me. And I also wanted more control over the creative process of how the book, so then I went with Balboa, and I knew that I needed an editor. And through my contacts with Balboa, I got linked up with the amazing CJ Redwine, who was my editor. She was so wonderful. I mean, I knew nothing about children's book, so I knew I needed an editor. And she helped me kind of form it and shape it. It was such a wonderful process. That was so much fun working with her. And that took about 3 months. And then once I had the final draft, then I went to my friend who was the illustrator. And then we started working on the illustrations, and that took about 6 months.
How was it working, illustrating your book with her?
That was really fun. That was, I mean, I've known her for, 25 years or so. And I've watched her as her illustrations. I've watched her acting, doing a lot of acting, but I've also watched how her illustrations have grown. I've always thought she was so incredibly talented, and to work with her. And this was one thing, like I had a lot of the visions of what I wanted to do. And I knew the 3 children I wanted to make this journey. And so I explained them to her. And then when she drew them and presented them to me, it was like my children. I cried. I fell in love with these 3 little kids. She drew them to perfection of what my idea was. And so it was a lot of that. It was like, this is my idea. So she helped. All these wild ideas I had, she made them concrete. And it was so much fun to do that with a friend. It was
wow. Yeah, that's so cool. I just love like children's books and like the illustrations behind them. And it's so fun seeing authors work with illustrators that they know. It just makes it so much more special, I feel like.
Yeah, it was very, I felt very fortunate to just happened to have a friend who was an illustrator. How lucky could I be, It really felt like it was the universe just saying, here.
What was your favorite part about writing your book, or what was maybe your favorite part about your writing experience as far as like the writing goes?
I don't know. To me, this has all been a big surprise. It
Yeah.
was just so much fun
Yeah.
having those ideas pop into my head. Like one of the ideas that popped into my head was Shakespeare dressed in John Belushi's Killer Bee outfit. So having these ideas that was just so much fun, and taking them seriously. That was just, it was like, well, no, this must be something. I'm going to do something with this. And so having those ideas popping into my head were really fun. And then writing it was just fun. I happen to really like math. So I think that's part of the reason why I like verse, because it's all, it's very mathematical. So then working with CJ and really understanding how to make the rhythm work and doing the beats. And then this was, I loved when this would happen. CJ goes, oh, this is a great verse. But that word, little kids aren't going to understand it. You're going to have to use a different word. And I'd be like, okay, that's going to ruin the whole rhythm. All right, I'm on a hunt. I have to find a word. We're going to do the same thing. I have to get the beats. I have to, and it was like putting together a puzzle. It was so much fun.
That is very cool. Yeah.
I don't know that I had a favorite. The whole thing was, it was like a big gift that happened to me.
Did you have a writing routine? I know authors sometimes have like a writing routine, like some write in the morning.
Yeah. Well, I was really fortunate at the time because our office was calmer during this period, because this was like right when COVID hadn't hit, but it had been around for a while. So there wasn't as much activity in the office. So that I find that in order to write, I have to be in the space of not knowing. I have to just have a blank mind and not let concerns be hitting me. I have to be able to just be present. So like the morning was really good. As I was in this process, I found that I was dreaming a lot about it. So I would wake up half asleep, half awake with ideas. I'd run and write them down really quickly. So I found, I think one of the best times to write is the morning, just to get it before anything else hits your brain. And so there was some of that, but I was also a bit obsessed with it. I mean, it was like a game.
The whole world.
It was like a new world that just dropped into me. And so, yes, I would do it in the morning, but my head was constantly on this stuff. And I would jot things down at work. Like I wouldn't have time to really do anything, but I would jot things down. And then when I got home, I'd write it out. And I was fortunate because it came to me at a time where I wasn't super busy.
Have you had any memorable reviews or any feedback about your book?
I've had both. I mean, I've gotten some very nice reviews on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. One of the reviews said this book is a gateway for creative freedom for your children, which I was like, that's wonderful. So there were a lot of very lovely reviews. There were reviews from adults that I really liked. This one adult said, I picked this book up to remind myself to let myself go here. And quite honestly, I think the thing about this book is that kids just know to go there. I think they just go there. And I think that our world slowly kind of pounds that out of them. And so this book is actually even more for the parents to remind themselves to let their kids be there. Just don't take it away from them. And help their kids to really, I think by me making it a space and concretizing it and saying, this is a really important place you should let yourself go to. By doing that, it's hopefully these children will, as the world's responsibilities and chores start piling on them, that they'll be like, oh, no, wait, there's a space I can go to. That's really lovely.
Yeah.
And that their parents will say, no, you will always be able to carry this space with you and you should respect it. And it's a wonderful place that as you become an adult, that you remember to go back to. With little children, you see it in their eyes. They're just in awe and this curiosity. And it's just delightful. And so I think that they already know about this space,
Yeah.
So it's just to help the parents say,
Yeah.
encourage it,
Yeah.
and don't let it be robbed from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a child, you're not a child forever. So, why not give them the ability to be a child when they are one?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And have the ability to carry that part of childhood into their adult life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, there's a lot of people, we don't want them to be childish, but to be childlike, that's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, I like that. What advice would you give to any first-time writers wishing to publish a book?
I would say my first thing is to really believe in your dream and trust your gut. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. I could have woken up that morning, and when I saw that mother holding the child and that gut feeling I had, I could have said, well, that's ridiculous. What do But no, I trusted myself and I acted on it. So I would say the most important thing is to really believe in yourself and trust your gut. I would say the second thing is, and it's something that, I hope to develop in the future a bit more because I'm going to be retiring soon from the office work. One of the other things I think that would probably be really important is to develop a routine where you just give yourself a quiet place. In order for those ideas to drop into your head, you have to court them. It's like courting your muse. And in order to court your muse, you have to give space to them because those kind of voices are very gentle and they're very quiet. And with all the other voices that are like, you have to pay your rent now, you can't hear these other little gentle voices. Spend time every morning where you write. Just let yourself, whatever those ideas are, just let them come and respect them and thank them for coming.
Do you have any goals for this year?
I do. I'm looking to retire from my office job in the fall sometime, and then I'm going to really work on marketing the book. And I'm really looking forward to that because I am an actor. So I'm going to offer schools for me to come in and read. The idea of reading and performing in front of children just tickles my fancy, so I'm like, I have to do that. So I'm going to do that, So I want to do that. I really want to work with Balboa for the marketing. So that's one of the things. I think one of the biggest things I really want to work on after I retire is to have a consistent and strong meditation practice.
Before we go, is there anything else you would like to leave with our audience today?
Sure. First of all, Emma, I just want to say that I am wholeheartedly appreciative of having this opportunity of being here. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me on
yeah, of course.
Team. Thank you
so much for chatting with me. It's been wonderful talking to you and learning more about your book and your past. And we're very happy to speak with you and to be your publisher too.
Oh, thank you. I am so pleased with Balboa that they were willing to do this, and I am really looking forward to working with them on the marketing. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you. And the other thing is I want to thank you, the viewer, for taking time to be with us. I'm very appreciative of that. I guess the one thing I would want to say is that if you really want to enjoy the space of not knowing, then there's a decision you kind of have to make in your life, and it's an important decision. And it's a decision whether the universe is working for you or against you. And if you decide it's working for you, then you can relax and enjoy the unknown because it's all there for you. So I want to say that. And finally, I just want to say that if you are interested in knowing more information about the book, you can always email me at thespaceofnotknowing@gmail.com. Also, I have a video on YouTube of me reading the book. So if you go on YouTube and you go to the space of not knowing, you'll see me reading the book.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with us. And yes, you can also find Lynn's book at balboapress.com or Amazon as well. And you can purchase it today.
And Barnes & Noble too. Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. See you next time.